You say, okay, he's a little better. You say, but don't ever put no white dude on me because that is disrespectful. I was like, okay. Now, I don't know how America gonna feel about that.
They'll be all right.
Larry Bird would probably beat LeBron 1-on-1.
Really?
You know, Bird tough to defend. Why? Because he looks slow as shit to me. So it's like, I'm missing something. So like, tell me what I'm missing. You know what I mean?
Larry Bird didn't just leave a mark on the NBA, he left a crater. From the moment he stepped onto a basketball court, his impact was undeniable. Even in college, he was such a force that the Boston Celtics drafted him before he had even committed to joining the NBA. And when he finally arrived, he was an MVP-caliber superstar right out of the gate, instantly transforming the Celtics into a powerhouse and leading them on deep playoff runs year after year. Bird's career was defined by legendary battles against the greatest players of the 1980s, carving his name into the history books with every rivalry. But his influence didn't stop when he hung up his sneakers. He went on to thrive as both a head coach and an executive, becoming the only person in NBA history to win MVP as a player, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year. His fingerprints are everywhere in the game's history. For more than 3 decades, NBA legends have shared stories about Larry Bird. Tales that sound almost mythical. With a nickname like Larry Legend, it's no surprise that his legacy feels larger than life. But don't just take my word for it. Let's hear what some of the greatest players of all time have to say, starting with none other than Michael Jordan. When discussing the greatest of all time, one name inevitably comes up first: Michael Jordan. For many fans, Jordan was their introduction to the NBA, as he single-handedly revolutionized the league's popularity in the 1990s. But even the greatest have predecessors, and before Jordan could dominate, he had to battle through the legends who came before him. There's a reason Jordan ruled the 90s but struggled to make deep playoff runs in the 80s. Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics stood in his way. Despite already being an elite talent, Jordan repeatedly ran into Bird's Celtics in the Eastern Conference, suffering back-to-back first-round playoff exits at their hands. Even Bird himself acknowledged Jordan's greatness early on, but at that stage, experience and a superior team kept Jordan from breaking through. Jordan was known for rarely giving praise to his rivals, but when it came to Larry Bird, his admiration showed in different ways.
Enjoy yourself, dog. Y'all gave us the run for our money. Yeah. I'll see you. All right, take care. Thank you. Work on that golf game of yours.
Jordan's interactions with Larry Bird often carried a bittersweet tone. A mix of frustration from losing to him on the court and deep respect for his greatness off of it. Despite their fierce rivalry, Jordan was surprisingly cordial toward Bird, even inviting him to play rounds of golf. Perhaps one of the few places he could actually beat him. At times, though, Jordan's frustration was more apparent. He didn't shy away from calling out Bird's physical and relentless style of play, even labeling him as dirty on occasion. Yet beneath those comments was a clear acknowledgement of Bird's toughness, competitiveness, and the respect Jordan held for a rival who helped shape his own rise to greatness.
He's a tough, hard player that you actually, you get angry at sometimes.
Everybody does. I mean, it's a common thing. If you had 273 professional athletes here, a professional basketball player, and you say who's the dirtiest player in the NBA, you know, I say 95%, I say Lambeer or Larry Bird.
Really?
Yeah.
Jordan's comment is interesting, considering that very few players have ever accused Larry Bird of being dirty. It's possible that Bird took a more aggressive approach specifically to gain an edge over Jordan. Or perhaps Jordan was simply exaggerating out of frustration to justify his struggles against him. On the other hand, Jordan's former teammate Dennis Rodman had a very different take on Bird. Rodman once claimed that Bird wouldn't succeed in today's NBA, even suggesting he'd be better suited for European basketball. The intent behind Rodman's statement remains unclear, leaving many to wonder exactly what he meant, whether it was a critique of Bird's style, an attempt to stir controversy, or simply another example of Rodman's unpredictable personality.
Okay, I'll put it this way. If Larry Bird played in this era, I think he'd be in Europe. So I'm just letting you know, man. Really? You know, like I said, I'm just saying he would be somewhere over there. Because, you know, I think his game was fit for Boston at that time in the 80s and stuff like that. You know, but today's world, oh, hell no.
Rodman may have carried some lingering frustration toward Bird, as the two had their fair share of intense battles on the court. Often assigned to guard Bird, Rodman experienced firsthand just how relentless he was, scoring with ease, outsmarting defenders, and backing it all up with constant trash talk. During this era, Rodman's teammate Isaiah Thomas shared an interesting story that revealed Bird's competitive mindset. According to Thomas, Bird once took offense when the Pistons assigned a white defender to guard him, as white players at the time were often unfairly stereotyped as less athletic. Bird made it clear that such an assignment wouldn't be enough to slow him down. That challenge ultimately led Detroit to put Rodman on him instead, giving Bird a more physical and intense defensive matchup, one that would go on to define some of their most memorable duels.
He said, hey man, you can't put no white dude on me.
Hey, bro.
That is straight disrespect. Right? He said, don't put no white dude on me. So check this out. So the next year we come back, I said, I got somebody for your ass, right?
Yeah.
He said, who you got? I said, Rodman. He said, okay, he's a little better. He said, but don't ever put no white dude on me because that is disrespectful.
Larry Bird was a relentless trash talker, but what made him unique was his humor. His confidence and sharp wit often made even his opponents laugh, like the irony of him complaining about white defenders when he himself was white. Bird's race also became a notable part of his superstardom, largely because of his iconic rivalry with Magic Johnson. The NBA leaned into their contrasting backgrounds, using their differences to fuel one of the greatest rivalries in sports history. In many ways, it's impossible to talk about Bird without mentioning Magic. Despite their years of fierce competition, Magic Johnson today speaks of Bird with nothing but the highest praise. Looking back, he appreciates their rivalry, recognizing how it pushed him to become a better player. From the very beginning, Magic always felt like he was chasing Bird's level, a challenge that defined and elevated both of their legendary careers.
And I'm glad that we came in together because I had somebody to measure myself to.
Right.
And say, hey, okay, he's great. I can't let him get too far ahead of me. I got to work hard because I want to stay in pace with everybody.
How was you guys' relationship? How would you describe your relationship? Obviously, you beat him in the NCAA the finals in '79, but how was your relationship once you got to the NBA? Because I think the thing was, he was Rookie of the Year. I think you got like 1 or 2 votes.
That's all.
The Rookie of the Year race between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson wasn't even close. Bird won in a landslide. Even decades later, Magic admits that the loss still stings. But instead of dwelling on it, he used it as motivation to reach Bird's level of greatness, fueling one of the most iconic rivalries the sport has ever seen. As for how Bird's game would translate to today's NBA, many believe his skills would still hold up incredibly well. His shooting, basketball IQ, and competitive fire were timeless. In fact, Gilbert Arenas once stated that he would pick Bird to beat LeBron James in a one-on-one matchup, a bold claim that speaks volumes about Bird's legendary skill set and the lasting respect he commands across generations.
Larry Bird would probably beat LeBron one-on-one.
Really? Larry Bird would beat LeBron James one-on-one. Ooh.
Because one-on-one, it takes away from everything LeBron has, right? His physical strength, his speed, right? And, you know, all that power he has going. Well, in one-on-one, you're talking about 1-2 dribbles. That's not his
corners. And
that's not his game.
Yeah.
That's Larry's whole game.
For a first-hand perspective on Larry Bird, his former teammate Danny Ainge offers valuable insight, having witnessed Bird's greatness up close. Ainge recalls one thing above all: Bird's unshakable confidence. He believed in his abilities so completely that he would often toy with defenders, telling them exactly what he was about to do, and then doing it anyway. No matter how they tried to adjust, they simply couldn't stop him. Bird's combination of skill, swagger, and precision made him one of the most intimidating and entertaining players the game has ever seen.
You know, I always consider myself a confident player, but, you know, Larry was an entirely different level. I mean, there's so many stories I have about just him taking games over and, you know, we coach you call a play and like, he's not running the play. Like, it's just, okay, he's just going to take it and score. Like, but he just had so much belief in himself and he could get a shot, you know, with double teams at the end of games. Like, teams knew what we were running and he'd still get a quality look off it.
The brilliance of Larry Bird's game went far beyond the obvious, and many casual viewers may not fully appreciate the subtle details that made him so dominant. Even Kobe Bryant, a relentless student of the game, initially struggled to understand what made Bird so difficult to defend. Curious, Kobe went straight to the source, asking Lakers legends from the Showtime era what made Bird so special. From an outsider's perspective, Bird didn't appear particularly fast or athletic, yet he was an unstoppable offensive force. There had to be more to his game than met the eye, and what Kobe discovered was that Bird's genius lay not in physical gifts, but in his mind precision and unmatched understanding of basketball.
You know, Bird tough to defend. Why? Because you look slow as shit to me. So like, I'm missing something. So like, tell me what I'm missing. You know what I mean? And so I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could. Right? No? That's a different generation. You guys probably never even seen Larry Bird play, which is just how many have seen Larry Bird play?
Hey, everybody's seen Larry Bird play.
That's not a high enough percentage. We got some work to do.
After studying Larry Bird's game, Kobe Bryant became one of his biggest advocates, urging more people to watch and appreciate Bird's greatness. Through his own research and conversations with NBA legends, Kobe developed a deeper understanding of what made Bird so special. He believed that the younger generation should follow that same path, learning from the legends of the past to truly understand the art and evolution of the game. One of those legends, Byron Scott, who faced Bird in multiple NBA Finals as part of the Showtime Lakers, shared a story that perfectly captured Bird's legendary mind games and trash talk, all delivered with an almost unsettling calmness. Bird wouldn't just talk trash, he'd tell defenders exactly how he was going to score, daring them to stop him, and then he'd do it anyway. No matter how well they adjusted, Bird always found a way to dominate, turning confidence and intelligence into his most devastating weapons.
I mean, Larry was just, and he would say it in such a calm way that you didn't think it was trash talking, but it's trash talking. You're not going to tell me you're going to go over there and shoot the ball in my face. That's trash talking. But he would tell you before the play even started. He just come out and say, you know, guys, you ain't got to worry. This is where the ball going. I'm going to catch it over here. And he would tell you to play and catch it over there and shoot it.
Playing against Larry Bird had to be incredibly frustrating. Imagine doing everything right as a defender, anticipating the play, rotating correctly, and working as a team, yet still being powerless to stop him. It had to be demoralizing, especially for Byron Scott and the Showtime Lakers, who faced Bird multiple times on the NBA's biggest stage. But while his opponents endured the frustration, Bird's teammates got a front-row seat to the show, often leading to dominant victories. Bill Walton recalls what he considers Bird's greatest game, which came in the NBA Finals against the Houston Rockets. That night, Bird stepped out of his usual calm and collected demeanor to fire up his teammates in the locker room. They needed a win, and Walton could sense something different about Bird that day, an intensity that made it clear he wasn't going to let them lose.
Larry went out and just played his self-proclaimed greatest game that he ever played. And it was spectacular because in a game of a lot of winners of the genetic lottery. I mean, you had Akeem, you had Ralph, who were just brilliant, just getting started in their careers. You had Kevin McHale, you had the Chief, and here was Larry. Larry got every rebound. Larry made every steal. He made every pass. He just literally did everything and made the rest of the world seem inconsequential. Larry Bird, the greatest player I ever played with by far.
Larry went out that night and played what he called the greatest game of his life, and it truly was spectacular. In a matchup filled with genetic marvels, Akeem Olajuwon, Ralph Sampson, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish, Larry Bird stood apart. He grabbed every rebound, made every steal, delivered every pass, and seemed to do everything on the court. He made the rest of the world seem inconsequential. As Bill Walton later said, Larry Bird, the greatest player I ever played with by far. This story perfectly illustrates what set Larry Bird apart from other NBA greats. His game wasn't just about skill, it was about the intangibles, his relentless drive, unshakable confidence, and unmatched basketball IQ. Walton often spoke about players who had won the genetic lottery, the biggest, strongest, and most athletic stars in the league. He had played alongside and against physical giants like Ralph Sampson, a 7 feet 4 inches phenom built similarly to Victor Wembanyama, and Hakeem Olajuwon, who together formed Houston's feared Twin Towers. Even on Bird's own Celtics team, Kevin McHale had one of the longest wingspans in NBA history at nearly 8 feet, and the roster featured 2 more 7-footers in the rotation. Yet somehow it was Bird, the so-called unathletic forward, who led the Celtics in rebounding. His elite basketball IQ, laser focus, and relentless hustle made him a force in every facet of the game. In that pivotal NBA Finals matchup against the Rockets, Bird sealed the win with a masterful triple-double, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists and 3 steals, closing the door on Houston's championship hopes. Even among freakishly talented and physically gifted players, Bird always managed to be the most impactful presence on the floor. Walton, a legendary champion himself, could only watch in awe. And Bird's aura wasn't lost on his opponents either. Charles Barkley, one of the NBA's rising stars in the mid-'80s, felt it firsthand early in his career. He still vividly remembers the first time he saw Bird up close, and it left a lasting impression that never faded.
My teammates, Leon Wood, was he's an NBA official now.
Yes,
So we're in the room getting ready for the three-point contest at an All-Star game. Larry walks in, says, "Which one of y'all gonna come in second place?" Y'all heard me. Which one of y'all gonna come in second place? I was like, damn, that was like my first real talk to him. Ooh, that sounded pretty aggressive. He won though. He won.
The sheer audacity of walking into a locker room, looking your competitors in the eye, and declaring yourself the winner before the contest even begins is almost unheard of. But that was Larry Bird. And the most incredible part? He backed it up every time. One of the most legendary moments of Bird's career came during an NBA three-point contest, when he didn't even bother taking off his warm-up jacket. He stepped onto the court fully covered, deliberately holding back, completely confident that he would win regardless. It wasn't just a statement, it was another form of trash talk, expressed through a fashion choice. That level of confidence and psychological warfare is something rarely seen in today's NBA. Another player famous for his own brand of trash talk is Reggie Miller. Over the years, Miller and Bird developed a strong bond during Bird's time as the Indiana Pacers head coach and later as team president, while Miller served as the franchise's cornerstone. But before their friendship formed, they were fierce competitors. Miller once sat down with Bird and shared a story about a game where Bird completely dominated him, and he told it directly to Bird himself, laughing at how thoroughly he had been outplayed. It was a perfect example of Bird's ability to not only beat opponents physically, but to live rent-free in their minds long after the final buzzer.
Celtics go on a 33-14 run, and they beat us in Game 5. But that moment of watching you, look, I know you're supposed to be competitors, but I'm going against the guy who I patterned my game after, and you put on an unbelievable performance.
It's rare to see one of the NBA's fiercest competitors and trash talkers left speechless in admiration, but that's the kind of impact Larry Bird had. His greatness was simply undeniable. Bird's dominance throughout the 1980s weighed heavily on the minds of the Showtime Lakers, especially their captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Had it not been for Bird and the Boston Celtics, Kareem might have won more championships than any player outside of the 1960 Celtics dynasty. Kareem became all too familiar with battling Bird on the NBA's biggest stage, facing him multiple times in the finals. But instead of resenting Bird for standing in his way, Kareem developed a deep respect for him, not just as a rival, but as one of the fiercest competitors and greatest players the game has ever seen.
It's ridiculous. He came on here. I remember our sportscaster played the Superman theme when he was talking about him that night after the game, because he did everything,
Right.
Points, rebounds, assists, just steals, you name it. Larry has such a great mind for the game. And, a great touch. I had a lot of respect for him as a competitor.